Good morning, grade nines. Mr. Smith here. It is 11 a.m. and today it's Milkshake Challenge Day. Yes, you have to go to Edpuzzle. I'll post a link. And you have to listen to me drone on for countless hours as I go through the entire 2018 Social PAT practice exam. It was released, so I get to write this exam and you get to listen to hear my commentary. I know exactly that this is exactly the way you want to spend your weekend. So this is why, I don't know if you can see it in the faded background, but I have images of Peter's Drive-In Milkshake. Remember, 3-flavor combo means 4,500 combinations are possible. Good luck. Now, for those of you not willing to listen to me drone on and on, but still want access to the video, I'll post two versions of the video. I'll post the Loom video that you can easily fast forward, and then I'll post the Edpuzzle, which I'll disable fast forwarding, and you have to listen to it all. Now, listen to me very carefully. You're smarter than all the people like me who try to make apps like Edpuzzle and all this other stuff. So this is the honor system. Can you cheat? Yeah, you probably can figure out a way to cheat. So whatever. If it's worth a milkshake to you to cheat, then I have nothing else to say to you. But for those of you who are going to play honorably and earn your milkshake, I'll probably break the video up into two parts. Every time I approach an hour, I'll probably shut down the video and that will be part one, okay? Okay, without further ado, let's go. The next screen you should see is me starting question one. Okay, here we go. Question one. Everything depends on your sources. You'll have a source booklet, you'll have a question booklet. Can't do the questions without the sources, okay? So here it is, source one, and it says questions 1 to 4 are based on the following sources. Governor General of Canada, clearly this is a structure of the federal government type question. Governor General, roles played as head of state, roles played as head of governor, typically serves. Okay, I'm not going to read out the whole thing. I'm going to read silently. I don't want to be that incredibly boring. Okay, there's a question mark there. And there's a question mark here, and it's related to roles. Okay. And there's a source too, but that's more about money. I think a couple of questions ought to be about these question marks, right? Okay, let's go to question one. Which of the following phrases correctly replaces the question mark under the heading, the Governor General of Canada in source one? The question mark is a member of the Senate. I don't think so. It is not a member of this. Governor General is not a member of the Senate, represents voters. No, Governor General does not represent voters. Is a member of the House of Commons. No, the Governor General represents the monarch of Great Britain. Okay, so the answer is D, and that's what you would shade in. Just moving my stuff around here. Question two, question mark under the heading, roles played as head of government. Roles played of head of government. Match your question to what they're talking about in the source. In source one would be correctly replaced by the following phrases. Okay, so let's talk about the roles. Reads a speech from the throne to open Parliament, may permit the Prime Minister to dissolve Parliament, and then there's a question mark. So like what powers or what role does it play? Gives royal assent to legislation. Yeah, that is one of the roles actually. So I'll just put a question mark and I'll see if there's a better answer. Introduces, no, it does. Governor General does not introduce bills. Lord, they can't propose. They're representing the monarch. You don't propose bills when you represent the monarch. Leads the official opposition. No, that means you would have been elected and you're a member of like a party, like the NDP or Conservatives or Liberals. Serves as a member of the, no, judicial branch means like the judges. No. So definitely A is our best answer. Okay, moving right along. The comments of which individual in source 3? Okay, well I notice are presented in source 2. Okay, so we need source 3 and source 2 in this one. The comments of which individual in source 3 are most directly, there's a reason they bold this stuff, grade 9s, related to the information presented in source 2. Okay, well we need source 3 as well. Does the Governor General of Canada need a Governor General? Okay, I'm going to pause the video, guys, because again, I'm going to try and keep the video short, and I'm not going to sit there and read everything aloud. So I'm going to pause. Okay, I read through these sources. It seems like This source seems to be, has positive things or seems to be favorable to the Governor General. These two sources don't seem to be too favorable. Now it says the comments be most directly to relation presented in source 2. The source 2, the operating expenses of the Office of the Governor General. Okay, so in other words, this is the money being spent. So we're talking about money being spent, right? Here's all these amounts, all right? So this source is talking, it's focused solely about money being spent on the Governor General. Now, was there someone talking about dollars here? No, this person was not talking about dollars. What about this source? Comforting the families of every soldier and, takes care of all. No, that source was not talking about money. What is the government? Meets wards, diplomats, make this a real. I don't see anything here about money or budgeting or expenses. The Governor General is only formality. It is a shameful waste of money. This one talks a lot about money. Okay, so in terms of source 3 and source 2 being connected, it's connected through active citizen. Okay, the answer is D. All right, we're talking about money. This person didn't mention it. Okay, I hope that made sense. Okay, taken together. I learned my lesson, by the way, about making sure your stuff is on camera, because I know I was off the camera for some of the math video. Taken together, these three sources, so taken together, okay, you guys can bring a highlighter to your PAT. Most clearly address which of the following issues. Should the Governor General be elected by voters? Well, I think only one source mentioned that. Should the Governor General be politically neutral? I think only one source mentioned that. To what extent does the Governor General serve the interest? All of them, I like this one. It seems like all of these sources touch on this issue. Like, how effective is the role of the Governor General? Like, this person talked about ceremonial, neutral office. This one talked about, comforting people. This one talked about was critical. It really only gives out awards and meets. To what extent political parties? No, there was no mention of political parties. That's definitely a dead answer. No. Clearly address, it's definitely C. To what extent the Governor General serves the interests of the citizens. Okay, moving right along. Questions 6 and 7. So 5 to 8. Yeah, well, my pages are a little different because I photocopied it separately. Questions 5 and 8. Use the sources on page 6 and 7. Okay, source 1. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to read through these sources, and I'll get back to you. Pause, Mr. Smith. Okay, I finished reading the sources. It's obviously talking about government, democracy, majority, minority. Okay, I made some notes here, by the way. Just a reminder, majority governments are not determined by number of votes. It's not determined by percentage of votes. It's determined by the number of seats, okay? The number of seats. So I made a note here. Your majority is half of the seats available plus one, because you need to be just one tick over 50%, right? Or half the seats. So half of 308 is 154 plus one. So your majority is 155, which means in 2012, again, they take real life examples. I guess that's 10 years ago. The Conservatives were in power with the majority because clearly this bar, right, extends past 160, and you only need 155. So the Conservatives had a majority back then. Just made some notes. Let's actually see what the questions say. In source 1, which of the following statements would correctly replace the question mark? So again, you're looking for question marks, grade 9s. Obviously, they're going to have a question. If they leave something in question mark, then they're going to have you analyze it, okay? The government is formed by a political party that wins less than 50% of the popular vote. No, I just got through saying it's got nothing to do with popular vote. It has to do with seats. It is by a political party that wins more than 50% of the government is formed that wins less than 50%. Well, less than or more than, I don't care, because it's still got nothing to do with the vote. It's got nothing to do with the 50%, okay? The government is formed by a political party that wins less than half. Yes, that would be a minority of the seats. Oh, there's the magic secret sauce word. I like that one. I'm willing to bet C is correct. D, that wins more. No, if it won more than half the seats, this would be a majority. This would be a majority. So no, definitely going to be answer C. Okay, answer C. All right, pause, Mr. Smith. I'm going to turn my lights on. Okay, the graph in source 2, question 6. Graph in source 2 illustrates the government was able to pass the bill identified in source 3. The government uses their majority. So I didn't quite read all of this, did I? No. It says use all the sources. Okay, I'm going to pause again. Hang on. Okay, the graph in source 2 illustrates that the government was able to pass the bill identified in source 3. So the government uses majority to pass omnibus bill. The government uses majority to pass a controversial omnibus. It just explains what omnibus just means. You take different laws, like different legislation. They should have been, but governments always pull this fast and dirty trick. Doesn't matter. Conservatives do this, liberals do this. We've only ever had conservatives or liberal governments in Canada, and they all have done this at various points. So an omnibus bill is the sneaky way of getting several different pieces of legislation, and they may or may not be related, but they are contained in a single document, and it's like all or nothing. Vote for this law, or you get none of it. So it's passed as one law. Opposition parties usually get terribly angry when this happens because they're not able to debate sections of the bill separately. Nevertheless, in 2012, what government was able to pull this off? Well, if you just look at the bar graphs, right, it would seem to be the Conservative Party. Okay, I don't think it's too much of a debate on that one. Okay, because there's a little bit of math here. Just look at your bar graph. They're the majority in the House of Commons, and they're actually still the majority in the, look at this line. It's right below 60. I think that's about 59 seats. That is more than half of your 105, right? So they had a majority in the House of Commons. They had a majority in the Senate. The Conservative Party is the one who pulled this off. Okay. Question 7. Both source 3 and 4 contain details that are most closely related, again, make sure I'm on the screen here, that are most closely related to the political power held by a minority government. Well, no, that's not the case in 2012. Clearly, source 2, like all these sources have to work together. So even though this question talks about source 3 and 4, source 2 is also a clue because we're talking about a majority government. So no, it's not political power held by a minority. This is the questionable wording. So this, by the way, majority. It's not talking about a minority, majority. Okay, legislative power held by a majority government. Yeah, so far that sounds okay. Let's compare it to the rest of the answers. You're always doing this in social studies. Give yourself a little check mark if your gut or your brain, or both preferably, tell you that you like this answer. Maybe don't commit, but let's just finish seeing the balance of power amongst branches. No, it says nothing about the judicial branch or the prime minister's office or the cabinet. So no, it's not about the balance of power between the branches. That was the key word here that wrecked that answer. The power of the judicial, remember, that's the law, that's the judges. Think judicial judges. The sources had nothing to do with the judges, and you can also think then Supreme Court. Regardless, though, that it's clearly answer B now. Answer B. Yep. 100%. Okay. Okay, you may have noticed I'm starting to take note of when my time index because this will make it easier and I don't have to go back and fast forward. So if I do this on the fly, it becomes a lot easier. The central issue raised by the 4 sources, all 4, is most directly, again, social studies is always about choosing the best answer, is most directly related to the extent to which a majority government promotes equality among citizens. No, that didn't really say about equality among citizens. It did talk about a majority government. I like this part, but this part, majority government upholds democratic principles while in power. I'm not so sure about that. Well, yeah, I guess it could be in the sense of, does it play fair or not? Yeah, I guess I'm lightly check marking this one. Minority government is able to win the support. No, it wasn't. So it's really a debate between C and D. The government promotes equality among citizens. No, I definitely don't like that answer. Okay, upholds democratic principles. Yeah, I guess it kind of speaks to this one. You see this source? They always use the word ram. They ram the legislation through, right? They punch it through. Um, and so even though the answer talks about upholds democratic, I guess I would have said to what extent the majority government upholds democratic principles while in power. So the government rams through this big omnibus bill, several pieces of legislation. It doesn't really do a good job of upholding, but that's what the sources are talking about. Majority government upholds democratic while in power or not. That's the way I would interpret it. Regardless, I like the answer B. Okay, because really it doesn't. None of those sources talk about equality among citizens. And answer C and D, minority government. Well, it's not a minority government. Okay, so questions 9 to 11 are based. So 9 to 11 are based on the sources on page 8. So actually the numbers do match, just because I printed them separately, page 8 and page 9. So I'll pause the video, let my brain catch up to these sources, and I'll come back and comment on these 3 questions. Okay, I'm back. I've read through the sources. And question 9 begins, which of the following phrases would correctly replace the question mark in source 1? Okay, source 1 talks about advocacy groups. Those are people who recommend or support or help out people who are transitioning from prison to society, right? Just a quick little, I don't know, illustrate. I'll do it here. So people are, criminals have been sentenced, adults or youth, doesn't matter. So prison, they're going to get reintegrated. If their crimes weren't that serious, if they don't get life sentences, eventually, the justice system wants them to be rehabilitated, reintegrated. And then, of course, you may have what's called a halfway house, okay? And that's a transition, okay? And it explains it in source 2. So that's all I'm going to comment about that. Which of the following phrases would correctly replace the question mark in source 1? Advocacy groups are not jurors and judges. No way, not even close. Jurors and members of the John Howard Society. Let's maybe pause on that one. Members of the Elizabeth for Friday. Jurors. Oh, jurors. Yeah, no. Jurors was the dead. It's like, this is half correct. Like, yes, but no, but that jurors is just so wrong. That destroys the rest of the answer. That's the way some of these social studies answers go. That they're kind of, this is correct. This is not correct. So kind of, sort of, but no, it's not jurors. Elizabeth for Society and no, see, judges don't do it. So that one. So it's going to have to be D. Let's see. Members of Elizabeth Fry. Yeah. See, those 2 societies. Okay, that one was pretty straightforward. All right. I think that was about 751. Okay, 756. The concerns of residents identified in source 3 are most directly related to the information in source 2 regarding how halfway houses, most directly, how are we connecting this source to this source? How do offenders come to live in halfway? Yeah, so there's a Q&A here, and there's a description here, and how do offenders come to live, what do residents do? Let's read the answers. Protect the rights of individuals who have been imprisoned, okay? Reintegrate the society into society individuals who have been incarcerated. Provide for the needs of individuals who have been released from prison. Well, no, the residents probably don't care too much about the needs of the individuals who've been released from prison, okay? They're the residents who live in this neighborhood. What are they concerned about? Okay, the location, like you're putting a halfway house next to our schools and parks, so this is this is a classic one. Okay, again, more real life examples. This does happen quite a bit. Crime in the community, prices of home. Okay. Ensure that the sentences of the individuals who have been convicted of crimes are completed. No, that's not really the concern of the residents, okay? They're not worried about early release or whether they finish their 12-year sentence or 5-year sentence or 6-month sentence. Not really. Protect the rights of the individuals who have been in prison. No, the residents don't care about protecting their rights, okay? Should have crossed that off right away. Reintegrate society who have been in, yeah. So how is this going to work? That's what the residents are asking, the people who live in these communities. They're saying, okay, how are we reintegrating the individuals who have been incarcerated? Like, we have a number of concerns here. what exactly are we going to do to address our concerns? Because if this is the purpose of a halfway house, okay, fine. I mean, as a society, we embrace the function or the purpose of a halfway house, but are you going to address our concern? So how is this working? How are we going to reintegrate the society individuals? Okay, 2009. Which of the following questions is most clearly answered by the information in these three sources? To what extent is Canada's justice Canadians? Yeah, that's one of them. That sounds good. Should Canada be funded with revenue from? No, that it's got nothing to do with the cost. Okay, most clearly, yeah, there's a bit of a mention. Okay, there is a mention here about how they're funded, but is that the main point of these three sources? No, I would argue no. It's not really. This isn't about, should we or should we not pay for them? What are the costs of maintaining? No, it's not about costs. What role do the courts play? No, this whole thing was about advocacy groups, halfway houses, concerns of residents about. So it's not about the courts. Definitely answer A is our winner. Okay, so that would be 2009 to 2107. Okay, pause. Okay, so I'm 20 minutes into this, and it seems clearly to me that I'm just going to pause, obviously, every time a new group. There's all these groups of questions related to whatever source. So I'm going to pause here. I've got a few sources to read, just two of them, and then I'm going to go through these questions. So I'll be right back. Okay, let's dive into these 4 questions that relate to source 1 and source 2. The enforcement of mandatory, lots of words here, by the way. Mandatory means must. They explain bona fide. You've got to really take your time in reading this, okay? Not sure if we're still in focus there. I think we are. Okay, the enforcement of mandatory, the must, like, you turn 60, you're retiring, it's over for you. Your career is done. Is subject to the terms of the Canadian Charts and Writing Freedom that pertain, okay, pertain means to relate, that relates to, that's an S there, legal rights, equality rights, freedom of expression, freedom of association. No, it's got nothing to do with expressing. Nobody's, stomping all over the pilot's right to express themselves. They're not stomping all over the freedom of association, okay? It's really not about legal rights, because the pilots actually do have rights to, hire a lawyer and fight their case. So it's really not about legal rights. This is about equality rights, right? Are 60-year-old pilots being treated equally as those pilots that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, okay? Question 13. Which two of the viewpoints in source 2 would be used most appropriately to support the decision of an employer to enforce? So in other words, they're on the employer's side. They're against pilots, and they're on the side of, I guess, what is it, Air Canada or something? Anyways, they're on the side of the employer, okay? That is, the employer is the company, okay? The bosses, all right? I guess in this case, what was it, Air Canada? Yeah, so Air Canada. Okay, so which viewpoint supports the pilots? Which viewpoint supports Air Canada? We're looking for the viewpoints that support Air Canada. Most appropriate to support, okay, that's your key word. The decision of an employer to enforce. So we're looking for viewpoints on the side of Air Canada, the bosses. Older workers bring expertise, should be rewarded for okay, that definitely does not support. Okay, that supports, I'm gonna use a different color here. This is pro-pilot, okay? Okay, it supports the pilots. It supports the pilots. Okay, so now look, use a little bit of technique here. Any answer containing viewpoint W should be the wrong answer. So viewpoint W, I don't care. Viewpoint W, no. Viewpoint W, no. I don't care what this is, because viewpoint W definitely supports pilots. So we've narrowed it down. And really, both of these viewpoint X's are in the right answer. So it's really a debate between Y and Z. So let's look at Y and Z and see which one is in favor of Air Canada. Employees sign a contract with their employer to determine age of retirement should be required to. Oh yeah, that is pro Air Canada. This is, you signed a contract and it's too bad, so sad for you. you're going to have to honor the contract. You signed a contract with full knowledge. Your eyes were wide open. Nobody held a gun to your head and forced you to sign a contract. The contract specifically said there's an age of retirement, and you should be required to honor that. That's definitely pro Air Canada. I can't see Zed being a better one. Younger words. No, that's really not. That's just about, this is about money. That's not really in favor of Air Canada. It's just actually showing, this is just talking about the pressure on young workers to make more contributions in dollars to support the really retired pilots who are relying on the pension. So it's definitely this one. Okay. Definitely viewpoint X and Y. Okay. Definitely viewpoint X and Y. And this one talked about lowering costs for the company. So yeah. Given the information in source 1, okay, so source 1 is the news story that is reporting about how the pilots are fighting back about this mandatory retirement. And now they're saying viewpoint W in source 2 presents arguments that would most likely be supported by Robert Kelly and George Vivian. Okay, I'm going to pause this because I'm just going to go back and familiarize myself with the names again. And just remember, viewpoint W is pro-pilot. You're looking for some comments in here that are in favor of the pilots. Okay, so I read through the source. I read through the question again. Viewpoint W, which is pro-pilot, okay, in favor of the pilots, okay, supports the pilots, presents arguments that most likely supported by the corporate management. Like this one kind of jumped out at me because the corporate management of Air Canada would not be in favor of viewpoint W, okay? Corporate, okay, the bosses at Air Canada would hate this viewpoint. The Canada Human Rights Tribunal, Robert Kelly and George Vivian, yeah, I tend to think these are the pilots, okay? These are the pilots. I can't imagine you're going to find a better answer than this. These are the pilots, and viewpoint W is pro-pilot. The federal court, no, she's neutral. Okay, she upheld the ruling, but she said the tribunal also made a mistake. The Canadian Humans, again, they're supposed to be neutral. They're just supposed to weigh evidence and just decide who's right, the pilots or Air Canada. This group of people, the federal court and the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, they tend to be more neutral. They're not supposed to be really on anybody's side. They just determine whether the Charter of Rights and Freedoms have been violated. So pro-pilot, 14A, it's obvious. Okay, I've been a little bit slack on noting my times, but I'll fix that when I post the video. Anyways, taken together, these two sources address an issue that is most directly. You see how this is often bold? Like, look at the amount of times the word most is used, right? So again, social studies, grade 9s, it's always about choosing the best answers. Some answers are okay, some answers are no good. I'm pointing my thumb down there. And some answers, like, they are the best. Choose the best answer. Taken together, these two sources address an issue that is most directly related to worker expertise. Yeah, that is related. I like that. Worker productivity. No, it's not really about productivity. Individual. Oh yeah, I like that one. I'm going to put a double check. Safety. No, it's not. It wasn't about safety yet. I only highlighted this one because it did talk about older pilots being more experienced, but it's definitely about individual rights. The sources are definitely like individual rights. That is just jumping out of the page. Okay, 2844. Okay, I've been through the sources for questions 16, 17, and 18. Obviously, we're talking about French language rights. And so let's start with question 16 in the context of source 1. So that's basically a timeline. It's giving you history. Read the title, some events related to recognition of Francophone rights in Alberta. Alberta being a majority of Anglophone and English speakers. The question mark under, oh, good old question mark, right there. The question mark under 1982 Charter of Rights and Freedoms would correctly be replaced by which of the following phrases? Protect freedom of religion? No, we're talking about language. So absolutely not. Establishes official minority language educational rights. Could be, right? 16. Yeah, that sounds right. Guarantees the freedom to associate. Oh, okay, no, that's not about freedom of association. We're talking about languages. Preserves the right to move in. No, that's not mobility rights. Okay, that one seems pretty clear. All right. It's definitely B. Minority language education rights. Okay, that was still 2955. Okay, to which two of the speakers in source 2 most clearly expressed dissatisfaction to the extent to which rights and francophones are recognized in Alberta? I read through it. I appreciate the government. This guy is fairly happy. Okay, it's true. As an Anglophone, it bothers me. Sounds like this person is not happy, especially when this person is definitely not. But I'm learning to speak French and I practice my French. It's great that the government. Okay, this person's happy about francophone rights in Alberta. It's almost impossible to sustain even the first sentence kind of gives that away. Disappear, right? I fear that they will not speak. So, X, Z. We're looking for X and Z. X and Z, right there. Okay? And again, as soon as you found like someone was in favor of francophone, you could have eliminated any answers containing W. So that would have been out, and that would have been out, right? Okay? Process of elimination, question 18. That was till 3107. And the information in these two sources will be used most appropriately to answer which of the following questions? Most appropriately, most. You see, most must be one of the most common words in this exam. Most appropriately to answer which of the following questions? Should Alberta become an officially bilingual province? Okay, maybe. Should francophones have right to govern their own schools? Well, no, the sources didn't really focus on schools. To what extent should federal and provincial government support and promote there? I like this one. That one sounds really good. To what extent should federal programs be directly encouraging to live and work? No, this is not encouraging francophones to move to Alberta. It's really about promote the rights. It's about promoting. That was the key phrase here. Promoting the rights. So I like answer C. Okay. 3217. Okay. We're on questions 19 to 22, and it involves source 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. So we'll read through that and get back to you. Okay. I've read through the sources, source 1, source 2, source 3, and it talks about essentially the rights of Indigenous peoples in Canada. And it starts with the Indian Act. So question 19, which of the following phrases, again, our famous question mark, which would correctly replace the question mark under some features of the Indian Act, source 1? Okay, A, respected the diversity of First Nations people. I hardly think so. Originally intended to assimilate. That's a common criticism of the Indian Act, that it was really just a way of kind of through the back door, of trying to assimilate First Nations people, and they wrote it into law. Using the law, in other words, using legislation, using the power of the Canadian government to assimilate First Nations people through an act, a legislative act. Indicated that Indian agents on reserves would be elected by, no, that had nothing to do with nothing. Okay, that's clearly a distractor. As, by the way, it says appointed, okay? That's not elected, that's appointed. Initially provided First Nations people with authority to administer treaty rights. Not even close. They were answerable to the Department of Indian Affairs. Clearly the answer is originally intended to assimilate the First Nations people, okay? I think in the end, I'm gonna group the timing according to the questions. Like this would be a group in Edpuzzle. So I'm just thinking on the fly here. Question 20. The legislation identified in source 1 is most directly related to the federal government's recognition. Identified is most directly related to the federal government's recognition of minority language, educational rights of First Nations peoples. Official, no, that doesn't sound, I'm going to say no. Official language rights of First, no, not really. Collective rights, yes, the collective rights, right? Everything taken together. So that sounds right. The legal rights, not really. There's nothing in here about mentioning access to a lawyer or the judicial system. Remember, legal rights talks about can the First Nations people, are they allowed to sue? Are they allowed to hire a lawyer? Can they get legal representation? So no, it doesn't really talk about the legal rights. No, not the educational rights. It does talk about the collective rights. That's the key there. So the answer is C. Okay, that was till 35:19. And the comments of which of the speakers in source 3 most directly question the adequacy. Okay, so how good is the services provided identified in source 2? Of which speaker? So again, we're looking question. They question. You can think of this as criticizing. They most directly question, they criticize. In other words, they're not fans of how the services provided to status Indians. They're not big fans of how well the services are being delivered. They most directly question or criticize the adequacy. Okay, so we're looking for people that whose points of view are pretty critical. Treaties are sacred agreements between nations, and Treaty 6 promised the promises have been broken. So this person is not happy with the treaties, and that we're looking for Speaker W, I think. So this answer looks good to me because Speaker W is directly questioning the adequacy. So answer A and answer B seem to be good so far. The medicine chest that are not publicly provided. The terms of the treaty clearly specify the mayor should receive these services. Well, they're not questioning. No, it's almost like they're neutral. So I don't know. They're definitely not questioning though. So I would say no. Speaker X. Anything with Speaker X is out. Okay, so that eliminates C and D. So again, this is going to be a fight between the last two. Is far below the rest of the Canadian terms of life. Yeah, this person's clearly not happy. So I'm going with Y. What does Z? I believe no. It's got to be Y. Speaker W and Speaker Y. Okay. Question 22. That took till 37:13. And the information in all three sources would be most appropriately, here's our favorite word again, to be used to answer which of the following questions. Should traditional medicine be used by First Nations? No, there was no mention of really traditional medicine. It was about services. Are healthcare needs sufficiently? Yeah, that sounds right. Is healthcare provided at low cost? No, again, money was not really mentioned. To what extent are First aware of American medical services guaranteed? Yeah, but not as good as this is an okay answer, but not great. Obviously, to me it seems obvious that it's B. Are the healthcare needs of all of these speakers are questioning or supporting, I guess here, are the healthcare needs sufficiently addressed? This person says yes. This person says no. This person says, well, we should receive services. And this person clearly says no. Okay. The next group of questions, 23 to 26, require 1, 2, 3 sources. And then I'm going to end the video. I'm actually doing pretty good because I cleverly thought to pause the video while I read. I thought it's going to be too long and too tedious and way too boring to have you sit through me processing the sources. You process the sources, I process the sources, but the video is paused. So this will be the end of part 1 once I'm done this. So I'm going to pause the video now as I read the sources 1, 2, and 3 for the questions 23 to 26. Okay, I've read through the sources. Let's begin with question 23. Which of the following phrases would be correctly added to the list in source 1? Okay, they could have put a question mark here, but I suppose I guess they're saying, here's your missing jot note. Okay, in other words, what's another reason? What's another definition of refugee? What makes a refugee a refugee? What reasons could you say or list that would classify you? That's the word I was looking for. Classify you as a refugee. Okay, be admitted on the basis of occupational. No, refugees have nothing to do. You could be the most talented car mechanic and you're not getting in Canada on the basis of being a refugee. That's nuts. Being able to find employment. No, again, it has nothing to do, okay? Fleeing from poverty. No, there are many poor places in the world, and unfortunately, Canada does not admit you into the country. You're not let into Canada on the basis that you're poor. Okay, flee from war. That's the obvious one. I don't think that requires any more commentary. 4002. That's so far, in my opinion, that's the easiest question on the exam, I think. Which of the following objectives of the Immigration Refugee Protection Act is most directly intended to improve the lives of individuals identified in source one? Which of the following objectives, right? So the Immigration Refugee Protection Act has objectives, like we're supposed to accomplish this, and this, is most directly to improve the lives of individuals. So in other words, if you need to replace this word, you would put refugees. Okay? Because that's what source one is talking about. It's talking about refugees. Pursue social, cultural benefits for all Canadians. No, that's really not the purpose of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. That's not the purpose, okay? Share the benefits of immigration to support a prosperous economy against, no. Again, we hope that there'll be benefits and there'll be a prosperous economy against across all regions, but that's not the primary, that's not the objective. Grant fair consideration, that's a good word, to people who claim to be persecuted in accordance with Canada's humanitarian ideals. That sounds perfect. Promote the successful integration of immigrants in Canadian society, recognizing mutual obligations for new immigrants. And no, again, we're talking about this word is talking about immigrants, okay? Immigrants, that's more of a broad, a general word, talking about people moving to Canada who aren't refugees. Refugees talks about, like, we have compassion and empathy, humanitarian ideals, that we feel bad for them, that they're being persecuted, or they're fleeing from natural disasters, or they're getting mistreated, or facing cruel, all this stuff, it's clearly C. Okay, so that took until 4202, 05, 4205 circumstances faced by the Syrian refugees in source 3 are most similar. So, source 3, we're talking about fleeing a violent government, the Assad regime. Okay, they were killing civilians, injuries. So, in other words, a violent government, a dictatorship, right? Humanitarian crisis, alleged use of chemical weapons, which would be illegal, of course, according to the Geneva Conventions, led to thousands of Syrians. Which one of these crises is similar to Syria? Yeah, that's not bad. 5,000 escaped the war from war in Kosovo. Violence at the hands of a military government. I kind of like that one. So we're trying to pick two, right? We're trying to pick two. Okay, these two sound pretty good. Canada faced persecution on cultural. So I don't like 2008. Cultural heritage. Cultural heritage is not what the Syrians were facing. So I'd say this one is out, and anything else with 2008 is out. That was not cultural heritage is not what the Syrians were facing. So 99. So 2006 is definitely in. Now you're comparing 1999 versus a government that is persecuting its people. Okay, well, this one doesn't really give much indication except it's war. Okay, right, but this was also war, and it's talking about a dictatorial communist. That's the key word there. The dictatorial, am I saying that right? Dictatorial, dictatorship. So I'm going with A, okay? I'm going with A. And A is right. I know it's right. I have the answer key, grade 9s, okay? There's no there's no disputing these answers. I have the answer key. It's like right there off camera. Okay, question 26. Taken together, these three sources would most appropriately be used to answer which of the following questions? Do Canada's policy on immigration and refugee protect national security? Nah, maybe, but I'm thinking no, that's sort of a light strike through. How do Canada's policy on immigration and refugee address world issues? No, not really. No. Uh, maybe. Do Canada's policies on immigration and refugees promote no, that is no consideration. Maybe it is B. I'm going to check here in a sec. How do Canada's policies on immigration impact political life? No, that's got nothing to do with that. Okay. There's no mention of political lives. Let's compare A and B again. Okay. Canada policies on immigration protect national security. Well, no, that it really didn't talk about national security. No. How do Canada policies on immigration address world issues? Yeah, in the end, yep, I was a bit hasty there. I shouldn't have crossed this out. So the world issues, right? World issues like war, okay, persecution, okay. I'm not going to be able to fit that in, right? Everything that talks about here, right? These are world issues. And refugees, Canada's policy on immigration and refugees, it's addressing this, this list of reasons. Okay, I like question 26. All right, grade nines, that's it for part one. We are at 46 minutes, about 46 minutes and 15 seconds by the time I'm done yakking. Hey, that's not bad. That's actually not bad. If the next section takes about 45 minutes, about 90 minutes. So there you go. Okay, end of part one. Coming up, part two. Cheers. Take it easy. Study hard.